Got to give the people give the people what they want. Bash, you know what it is. I'm back. Let's do some factoring of polynomials with 4 terms. Factoring by grouping. Here's the thing. You better make sure that you have written all of these words down because I am going to be checking them in class. If the words aren't there, I'm not going to give you credit because I'm horrible like that. So, the first most common way that when you have something with 4 terms is you're going to factor by grouping the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms. So, for example, check this one out right here. Okay, so we are going to group these 2 terms and these 2 terms right here. And now, just like my typical factoring, I'm going to be looking for GCFs in each of these, and we're going to see some crazy stuff happen here. So, in this first set of terms, I'm seeing that the greatest common factor should be an x squared. So, when I factor that out, I'm left with x minus 3. Bong bong. My next one, I'm seeing my GCF should actually just be a 2. So I'm going to factor that out. And that leaves me, oh snap, look at this. It is also x minus 3. How lovely is that? So now, this is what we want. Now I can basically take each of these x minus 3s. And it's like I'm factoring those out. So I'm going to take this x minus 3, those, and what I'm left with is times x squared plus 2 times x squared plus 2. So I'm only going to prove that this makes sense once, but just so you can see, well, why can I just do this? Well, because if I was to distribute this, this basically means, right, I multiply this with each of these. So this means x minus 3 times x, right, plus x minus 3 times 2, which is exactly what I already had here. So we can see how those mean the same thing. Now I'm going to get rid of that. You don't need to get rid of it, okay? So this becomes my final factorization right here, okay? So let's do another one that looks kind of similar to this. So let's write this next example. So example 2 says, what is this? 8r cubed minus 64r squared plus r minus, ooh, that is just not the right number, minus 8. Okay? So again, this is what's going to happen most commonly is I'm going to see, okay, I'm going to group the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms. So let's see what we can do with this. Let me go and look for my GCF. I see an 8r squared. So I have 8r squared that I could factor out. And I'm left with 1r minus 8. Okay. Plus, oh, look at this. There's nothing to factor out, but look how pretty that is. This is a 1r minus 8. Same situation. Here's my key question, though. There's nothing here. What number goes right there? Boom. Hopefully you recognize, well, if it's nothing there, that means there's like that invisible 1 right there. Okay? So I'm going to take this and I'm going to factor the 1r minus 8 out of each of them. I'm just going to now call it r minus 8. And I'm left with 8r squared plus a 1. And I've now factored this second problem. Have a sip of my beverage right here in South Lake Tahoe. And let's move on to the next part. So the next piece that we're going to do is sometimes you're not going to group the first 2 and the last 2. Sometimes you're going to group, how did I write this? It's going to be B. Not as common, but it could happen. We're going to group the first 3 terms together. And we will notice when this seems to make sense. So let's do example 1 on this idea. So I'm going to say x squared plus 6x plus 9 minus y squared. Now notice this. See how this looks like a quadratic trinomial, and this is all in kind of the x terms, and this is in y. This is kind of a dead giveaway that maybe I group these three and I leave this one separate, and we see if anything kind of cool comes out of that. So let's see what happens. All right, so if I put these together and I keep this how it is, well, this I can factor. Why don't you guys go ahead and factor that right now? Hopefully you just factored it. I'm not going to show all the work of factoring it because you should know how to do that. But ultimately, this thing factors into x plus 3 times x plus 3. And this is minus y squared. Now here is the super, super important part. How could I write this in a different way? Well, that also means x plus 3 squared minus y squared. All right, and here's that special case. This, and you're going to put a star. Remember, this is a difference of two squares. Okay, and that's one of those ones that I have to know. And remember, because this is a perfect square and this is a perfect square. So it always, the difference of two squares always becomes x plus whatever, x plus a times x minus a. All right, that's silly. I shouldn't have written it a. Let's change that. X plus y times x minus y. So in this case, where this is x and this is y, this is going to be x plus 3 plus y squared. That's one set of it, times x plus 3 minus y squared. So I have now fully factored it because it's a difference of two squares. So x plus 3 plus y squared times x plus 3 minus y squared. All right, let's see if we could find, oh, I think I need a new page. Boom, page below. Let's get it. All right, let's see if we could do another one of these. Nah, we're not gonna. All right, the last one. Example, this will be letter C. Is the first time we grouped the first three. This time we're going to group the last three terms together. Again, not as common, but it might happen. And notice in this one, we have a y squared minus x squared. This will be example 1. Y squared minus x squared plus 6x minus 9. And again, notice this looks like a quadratic trinomial, and these are in x's, and this is totally different in y's. So this kind of tips me off that maybe I should group those last three together. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to put this, boom, boom, right here, and I'm going to keep that right there. Okay. Again, I could factor this. What is this? Why don't you guys go ahead and factor this one for me? Hopefully, you just did that, and this factors out to x plus, oh no, lie. This factors out to x minus 3 times x minus 3. And that's still a subtraction sign. This is still y squared. And again, I should be looking at this saying, oh, I can rewrite that in a different way, which gives me x minus 3 squared. And this is still y squared. And now I should be looking at this and being like, bong, 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 star, star, star. This is a difference of two squares. That is something I should be thinking about. So I know how this is going to factor. This is going to be y plus whatever this is, in this case, x minus 3, times y minus whatever this is, which is x minus 3. And I am completed. All right, that is part 1 of your video. second part where we're just going to do a couple more practice problems coming up next.